Yesterday afternoon, I got on a United Airlines 757 bound for Dulles. We had one takeoff, we had one landing, and I walked away from the landing. Is there anything noteworthy about that? No, it's what I expected, and I'm a happy customer. Let's go to that, my one and only chart. Anybody know what that is? It's gorgeous. It's a night launch of the shuttle. And it doesn't get as much airtime on CNN as Barack or Hillary. Right? But it's really hard to make something like that successful, and yet we deliver, right? As an aerospace community, we deliver. NASA delivers. It's what the public expects. So our products that we produce in this industry, you just heard a great discussion about Hubble and all the great work that the team has done there. They work the vast majority of the time exactly the way they're expected to work. And that's a credit to all of you in this room. It's a credit to everybody in this industry. And it's what the public expects. It's what the Congress expects. And yet when you think about the programs that we run to create those products, our record isn't so good. Cost overruns, schedule extensions, and things like that are kind of normal, not only in our business, but in other projects too. What was I was reading in the paper the other day? They just finished some big tunnel up in Boston area or something like that. And do you read the size of the overruns and the schedule erosion that went with that? So it's not just the aerospace industry. It's lots of different programs and projects. And so about 10 years ago, Boeing looked around and said, you know, we've got some programs that are going really, really well. Development programs, production programs, sustaining programs. We have some programs that are kind of doing okay, not great, but they're doing okay. And then we have some train wrecks. And so we went out to say, well, what are the fundamental differences, if any, between these programs that are doing really well and these ones that are doing okay and these train wrecks? And so we sent a team out to do a bunch of research, and they came back and they said, yep, sure enough, there are some differences. And we said, good. Let's write those down and go train people on how to do things the right way so that more of our programs are going well and fewer of them are train wrecks. And so they did that, and they actually built this stuff into a model. It looks an awful lot like a CMMI model where you can, it's got 134 attributes. You can score anywhere from a 1 to a 5, depending on your level of implementation and maturity in that particular attribute. And then that boils up to 8, what we call our Boeing Program Management Best Practices. And what we do is every year we assess all of our programs and we see what we learn, and then we improve the model. And that way, every year, the corporation learns a little bit more and everybody raises the bar. By the way, the dirty little secret is when I modify the model every year, I make it a little harder. So if you were operating at a level 4, say 3 years ago, and you did nothing today different than you did back then, you would not be a level 4 today. And for the first about 8 years of that, we said, okay guys, here are the best practices and we'll teach you how to use them, but it's really your choice. As a program manager, you can choose to do these or not. It's really your program. 2 years ago, we said, all right, enough of that. We've got the culture to the point where we've demonstrated the value. Now it's required. And it kind of goes like this. If you're a program manager at Boeing and your program gets into trouble and you were using the best practices, you get to keep your job. Because what would I tell your successor to do that you're not already doing? If your program gets into trouble and you're not using the best practices, you are now the former program manager, and you will be replaced. And now, these best practices really just encompass the fundamentals. So if your program is fundamentally flawed from the beginning, like you're relying on a technology that doesn't exist, or you've got about half the time in the schedule that it really takes to do the job, or half the money that it really takes to do the job, or something like that, you know, all the best practices in the world won't fix that. But assuming that you've got a reasonably planned out program with a reasonable set of assumptions, use these best practices, and it greatly increases your chance of success. So I refer to these best practices as the right stuff or the fundamentals. You know, people like to tell this story about this coach Vince Lombardi, that famous coach of Green Bay, who used to get his players together. And so he got all these very experienced professional football players, probably been playing football since they were children. And he'd pick up a football and he'd say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." Now, did they already know that? Well, of course they did. But then he would take it from there and he would drill them on the fundamentals, because Coach Lombardi knew that in order to succeed in a game of football, you had to master the fundamentals. In order to succeed in music, you have to know how to do scales. There's no way around it. And in order to succeed in program management, you need to master the fundamentals. And all this great technology that we talk about and that we do and we incorporate in our programs is really great. And we usually don't mess that up too badly because, you know, we're kind of engineers and technologists at heart and we love to do that stuff. Where we find we mess programs up the vast majority of the time is on the fundamentals. I can't think of a Boeing program that got messed up that we went and looked at where we looked at the Boeing program management best practices and we say, wow, if they'd have done all this stuff, would they be in the position they're in now today? And the answer is nope, they could have avoided all that heartache. So what are these best practices? Well, really the first one starts with your strategy. We call it the business plan, but it's really the strategy. You just heard Frank talk about the strategy with regard to with Orion and Constellation and Shuttle and the discussions about servicing and all that. It really gets down to, so why are you doing this? What is your customer trying to accomplish with this, whatever it is your program's creating? And you can hear the discussion about, well, you know, should it have cargo capability or not? How much? Well, it kind of depends on what you're going to use it for. That's the strategy. It's the why are you here? What need are you trying to fulfill with your program? And we make that number one because you have to get that right. And you saw Boeing, if you were watching the news here a number of years ago, spent a lot of time and get ridiculed by the press quite a bit trying to get that right. So first of all, was it going to be a big airplane, bigger than a 747, something like an A380 size? And as we talked to our customers, they said, you know, that's not really what we need. Yeah, we'd buy a few of them, but that's not really what we need. So we said, well, great, we got all this technology, composites, propulsion. How about an airplane that goes really, really fast? Almost supersonic, but not quite. We called it the Sonic Cruiser. Anybody read about that in the press? Yeah. And boy, us engineers got really excited about that. Oh, this thing's going to go really fast. And the airline said, yeah, that'd be really neat. Not what we really need, though. They said, we need you to take all that technology and make an airplane that's economical and environmentally friendly. So we said, well, okay, we can do that. And that's where the 787 Dreamliner came from. So it's important to understand your strategy, and that's why it's number one. Number two is the business offer. This is the, okay, for those of us that are contractors, this is the proposal. For you and NASA, it's the, you know, whatever it is, the program that you're going to take to your management and to Congress to get it funded, right? It's the, what are we going to commit to? And this is where it's so important to get this right, because it's much easier to successfully execute a program that's actually doable. That sounds so fundamental, doesn't it? But how many times have you seen this nation, this agency, other government agencies commit to programs that just, you know, you can't get there from here? And so the business offer, make sure that whatever it is you're offering and that you're committing to do is in fact doable. You got 1 foot on the ground, it's grounded in reality, and there are enough smart people that know how long things take and how long and how much things will cost, that they can help you with that. Now, is that to say that we'll never make progress, we'll never do anything faster, we'll never do anything cheaper? Well, no. But if you take what history says something will cost or how long it will take, and then you factor in whatever improvements you've made, analytically, right? Not arm-waving it, but analytically say, I made this investment in this capability and I can shave this % of time off of this step, get it down to that, take a scientific, rigorous approach, then you can commit to improvements, but you've got some basis in fact to back it up. So that's the business offer. Well, then the next one for us is this whole thing about the organization. How are you going to organize your program? And we find out that people mess that up. Where if you take the work breakdown structure, which says here's what we're going to build, and then you hold that up next to the organization chart, assuming they have one, and you start looking for, okay, so I go down this work breakdown structure, who's responsible for that piece? Show it to me on the org chart. And there should be a very tight linkage between the two. So here's what I have to deliver, and here's who's on the hook to make it happen. And that's an organization that you as a program manager can manage successfully because you've got the single belly button that you can point to for every one of the things that you're on the hook to deliver to your customer. Okay, so that's the organization piece. Supplier integration. Frank was talking a little bit about the fact that you get the specialty houses that build your sensors, your batteries, and all that stuff. And those are suppliers to the prime contractor or to the integrator. And he's absolutely right. Those are the people who know the most about those things that they're building. But how do you integrate them into the overall team so that you've got absolute transparency of what's going on so you don't get surprised? And it's amazing how many times our customers or even Boeing as a prime contractor will get surprised by something that's happened maybe 2 or 3 layers down in the supply chain. And there's some supplier down there that, I don't know, they changed a vendor, they changed a procedure, they closed a factory and moved it to some other place. And that's all it takes. And we had no visibility of it until there was a hardware failure. Had no visibility at all. And so supplier integration is all about making sure you've got absolute transparency, clear up and down through that contracting chain so you know what's going on. And if you see something funny, you can go ask questions, and then from there you can decide are you going to take action or not. But supplier integration is a big deal. And the next one for us is program execution and control. And that's where the program manager lives for a very long time. This is all about having a plan, doing your systems engineering, having an integrated schedule, linked to your costs, backed up by a staffing plan, and all of that stuff. And then every week, without fail, you've got the metrics, the charts that say, here's the plan, here's where I am, here's where I'm off track, here's where I need help. And if you can do that on a regular basis, and we tell our program managers every week, sit down with your team, have a standard set of charts that you go through. And I'm not talking about these pretty PowerPoint charts with pictures or, you know, what we call these bullet charts, word charts, right? I'm not talking about that. All due respect to Bill Gates, I don't like PowerPoint for running programs because it's all fake. You know, you can put anything on a PowerPoint chart and it can be pretty artificial. I'm talking about a meeting where you're actually going into your data system, wherever your data is housed on your program, bringing up the no-fooling real data that give you the up-to-date status of where things are. Status, plotted against the plan, with trends, can tell you where you're headed. And if you're headed for the ditch, you can be perceptive to that early and then take action. Okay, so that's program execution and control. And again, that's a big one because you live in that a lot. By the way, some people think that a well-run program means everything's proceeding according to plan all of the time. If you ever find that program, would you give me a call? Because I've never seen one. Never. And what I have seen, though, is programs where they have a plan, and they check status against that plan, and they find out early on that they're off plan, and they take corrective action, and they get themselves back on plan. I see a lot of that. But I've never ever seen one where they just laid out a plan and it just magically marched right up that line. Okay, so then risks, issues, and opportunities. I call it RIO, R-I-O, risks, issues, and opportunities. This is the ability of a program manager and their team to look around corners. Think about what could go wrong, and if it goes wrong, what do we need to do about it? And for some subset of those, Are those consequences so bad that we need to start doing things today to prepare ourselves so we're ready to do something if it goes wrong? He talked about looking into the future. Frank did. That's really looking into the future, taking off those rose-colored glasses and really putting on that, been there, done that, I've got a lot of scars on my body, what could go wrong, and prepare for it. And it's really not a whole lot different than we do when we do something like plan an EVA or a shuttle mission, right? We think about not only what we plan to have happen, but we also think about what could go wrong and how are we going to prepare ourselves to deal with what goes wrong. Right? So risks, issues, and opportunities. So that's risks. Issues. A risk is something that could go wrong that hasn't gone wrong yet. An issue is something that could go wrong that is going wrong. So the only difference between the two is the probability. Right? On a risk, the probability of it happening is less than 100%. On an issue, it's 100%. It's happening. It's eating your lunch today. Right? And if you are running a program, I will guarantee you, you have issues on your program today. You might not know about them because your team might not be telling you about them, but they're there. Go look. They're there. And so we integrate risks and issues because so many of those issues are just risks that we were unable to mitigate successfully. And so it's got to be managed as an integrated set because they're so interrelated. And then opportunities are the opposite of a risk. These are, how can we do better than planned? What are the opportunities? Maybe we need to make an investment. Maybe we need to get some people to go study it. Maybe we need to go collaborate with somebody. But what are the things that we could do on this program to perform better than planned? And this is really a hard one because your team will say, oh, we don't have any of those. Wait till they get in trouble and see how they scramble to get out of it. And all of a sudden they create those opportunities. So this best practice is all about creating those up front before you're in trouble and maybe doing some deliberate things to realize those opportunities and just use those opportunities to do better than planned to offset the risks and the issues where you're doing worse than planned. Hopefully they'll net out, and in the net, you'll be on plan. Because again, no program goes exactly like you plan. Those risks, some of them do turn into issues. Some issues come up that you were just unable to predict. And so you've got to have the opportunities to offset the risks and issues so that you net out on plan. So that's risks, issues, and opportunities. Then there's help needed and independent review. At Boeing, we've got a requirement that says any briefing you give, the last chart needs to be your help needed chart. Okay? And it's what help do you need from outside of your team to deal with something. Now, you could put up there help needed and the next, and that's the title, and then it says none. That's okay if you don't need any. But the reason why we make it the last chart of every review is because you're sitting, picture this, you're sitting there as a program manager and you have one of your integrated product teams briefing for the last half hour on how they're doing, and they're showing these technical difficulties they're having. They're showing that they're a little behind schedule, they're a little overrun on costs, they got some suppliers that are late on deliveries or whatever, and then help needed, none. That's why that chart comes at the end, because as a program manager, that gives you the opportunity. It's a very teachable moment. It gives you an opportunity to have some dialogue. Now, maybe they really don't need any help, and they'll get this all worked out. But chances are they need help. And you know, these aerospace programs are really hard. We do things that people think are impossible. I mean, there are people that still think that that's impossible. There's still people that don't believe we landed on the moon. We do things that are really hard, and it's unreasonable to expect that some product team somewhere on your program is going to be able to solve every problem that they come up against by themselves. This is a team effort. So help needed is all about finding out what those things are, keeping the responsibility with them, but giving them the help so that you can make sure that they succeed. Because in order for you to succeed as a program manager, every one of your integrated product teams, every one of your subcontractors needs to succeed, because it all comes together for a successful program. And then the final one is communication. Communication. You know, as program managers, we are first and